Hello humans and welcome to episode 14 of Chef Mike Does Stuff. I am of course Chef Mike. Thank you very much for joining me today. Today's episode is going to be super simple. We are making some cheddar and chive scones. For those in the US, this is kind of like a biscuit. It's going to be a crumbly type bread, if you will. Very different than, let's say, a croissant, which is a laminated dough. So you're folding butter to make layers. This is more, we're going to combine that butter with the flour to make almost like sand, so that when it bakes, it's nice and crumbly. I've got bunch of nice aged cheddar, all-purpose flour, heavy cream, chives, and a few other ingredients. It's super easy, and then when it comes out of the oven, I'm going to brush some garlic butter on it. It's going to make your breath stink, and it's going to keep the vampires away. So let's go ahead and get to the table. It's going to be quick and easy, and we'll go ahead and get our scones rocking. All right, it is now time to make some scones. So the first thing we're going to do is take 2 cups of all-purpose flour. You may have a sifter, you may have something like this. If you don't have something, don't even bother sifting it, but I am a creature of habit. I do this pretty often when I'm cooking for myself. But 2 cups of all-purpose flour. Next thing we're gonna do is add 2 teaspoons of salt. And I'm just gonna put it right on the top right there. Then we're gonna add 1 tablespoon of baking powder. So this is going to help give us a little rise. This is not going to have like a crumb structure like a loaf of bread or anything. Like I said before, this is going to be very much like a biscuit. So it's going to be crumbly, fall apart. And because we've got a bunch of cheese and some a bunch of fat in there, it's going to fall apart pretty easy and be very tasty. 2 teaspoons of sugar. Okay, so that's everything. And now just give it a little bit of that shake. So one of the things, this is evenly distributing the flour. This is making sure you don't have these little balls here of flour that once they get moisture on them, they kind of keep their shape. So we really want to make sure that it's a nice even. I got some on the end of the bowl there, but that's all right. So it has been sifted. That is amazing. The next thing we're going to do is get our cold butter. Okay, so in the fridge, you want to keep it extra cold, and since I've got the new mic on, this is about 4 tablespoons of cold, regular salted butter that I cut, and then I put back in the fridge. If you have a pastry cutter, now is the time, because we want to make sure that this butter stays cold. I do have a pastry cutter, but I'm not going to use that. What I'm going to do is start using this fork, and I'm basically cutting the butter with the flour. I don't necessarily want this to mix together into, let's say, a ball of dough. I want to keep this relatively crumbly like sand. You could use your hands. What I recommend and what I was thinking about doing is dousing my hands in, like, let's say, ice water, putting gloves on, and then, you know, like rubbing the flour in between my fingers. But I was like, you know what? Let's make it a little bit easier, a little less confusing. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna use a fork. Like I said, a pastry cutter is better for this, but the main thing is you do not want the butter to warm up during this process. So I'm actually, I don't know, it's getting a little hard to see, but I'm actually using the tongs of the fork to push butter through it to start making these pieces a lot smaller and smaller and smaller. I am going to check with my hands in a minute to see how this all turns out. But it's looking good so far. There might be a little bit bigger. It doesn't have to necessarily be super even as far as the little piece sizes of butter in there. It could be some pieces a little bigger, some pieces a little smaller. Do what you gotta do. Now I'm going to quickly take my hands. You get like one opportunity to see how we're doing. Yeah. And I think we're doing good here. You can see we've got little pieces of butter that are throughout the dough. Looking pretty good here. Awesome. Okay. That's all I want to touch it, because I could already feel that butter is starting to get a little more, a little softer. And we want to make sure that everything is mixed in and ready to go before that butter does in fact melt. So, rinsing my hands. Next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to add my, let me get a spatula real quick that I forgot to set down for myself. All right. This is 3 1/4 cup of heavy cream. Trick here, I just want to mix it till it starts kind of forming. Before you finish, it's at this point, we're going to add our chives, like so. We're going to add our cheese. So that was about 1/4 cup of chopped chives, and this is a cup of shredded cheese. And now we just mix it. It's going to start forming a dough. Like I said, it's going to look crumbly. This is not going to be a big cohesive mass. I mean, yes, it's going to hold together, but it's not like you don't need to knead this. You don't want to develop the glutens like you would in a traditional bread dough. You want to keep it somewhat crumbly. So really, we're at the point here where that's all I want to do. Awesome. Okay. So what you could do is just start kind of squeezing it together. Maybe do a couple folds here and there. Like so. Just enough for the dough to start getting it. I've got a couple drops of cream still in the little cup here. I'm going to mix it just a little bit more. I might need to add a little bit more moisture to it. No, we're gonna stick with this. Okay. So it does hold together. So we're rocking and rolling. Next thing I'm gonna do, move that bowl over. I've got a little extra all-purpose flour I'm gonna put on my countertop just so things don't stick. Okay? Like so. I'm going to take my mass of dough here. Okay. Yes, it is still crumbly. That is perfectly fine. That is going to make a delicious scone. Let me move my bowl out of the way. And now I'm really just going to form it into a ball. Flat on the bottom. I got all my pieces. And I'm going to push it down like that while just trying to keep the ends together like that. Another thing I'm going to waste time on is I forgot to pull the pan out that I'm going to, after I cut these, put them on. Hey, making sure my kids don't run in here and ruin the shot, okay? So look at that. Beautiful. That's basically, as you can see, yes, a little crumbly, crackly. That's okay. This is el natural. Okay. So I am going to get first I'm going to rinse my hands off. Then I'm going to get a knife. And then I'm going to get a pan. And then I'm going to get non-stick pan spray. Got my knife. I'm going to cut this into 8 pieces. Okay? If you're doing this on your counter, be very careful. Don't cut into your counter. That would not be good. Okay. If you've got a bench scraper, it's kind of a either plastic or metal thing, like just kind of a square, that's perfect for doing dough and stuff like this. I'm going to loudly get a pan out of my little drawer here. Come on, pan. Now I'm going to go into my closet here and get some of this pan spray. Here we go. I got a nice beat up pan. Just a little pan spray. I am going to transfer these bad boys. Oh yeah. Onto the pan. I've got my oven preheated to 450 degrees. And I have no idea how long it's going to take. Maybe 45 minutes? I'll let you know when it's done. Because like all my videos, I'm just making this one. Hopefully it turns out. I didn't even practice. I didn't even test this recipe, really. All right, make sure they're spread out because they're going to move around. And I'm going to throw this in a 450-degree oven for, I think, 30 to 45 minutes. And when they come out, we'll do a little action shot with some hot, melted garlic butter over the top. I will see you in a few. All right, we are now on the gut cam 10,000 and our scones are ready. So it wasn't 30, 40 minutes. It was like 22 to 25 minutes at 450 degrees and our scones are done. Over here, well, first, how about I hold one up for you? There's our scone. Perfectly done. In this bowl right here, so this is the most important part. I've got melted butter and garlic powder. I usually use fresh garlic, and I'll usually do like a clarified butter, but I don't have the time and I don't have fresh garlic, so I'm just melted regular old stick of butter. And now, you want to make sure you do this. I like doing it on all sides of these bad boys. Oh yeah. They are currently really hot, which is a perfect time. Some of that butter, because this is a dry biscuity type dough here, right out of the oven. It's definitely going to absorb a little bit. It's going to keep it shiny, make it delicious. It's not going to taste as, let's say, dry. A couple other things you could do. If you don't want to do butter on the top, one suggestion is brush a little bit of that heavy cream over the top before you put it in the oven. That'll give it a nice little kind of browning over the top. It'll look really nice. But once again, like all the recipes that I do, I want you to make your own version of this. Do you want to add a bunch of meat and bacon and make it spicy? Do you want to add Old Bay seasoning to it and do it a part of a side dish? Do you want to add dried fruit and top it with some kind of chutney or like a glaze or something to do a more sweet scone? Do all those things. Post it. Tag me. Hashtag Chef Mike Does Stuff. Maybe Scone Life? I don't know. Come up with a cool hashtag. But so here we go. Nice and shiny. I'm going to break this bad boy open. Okay. So you can see. Okay. Oh, yeah. Beautiful crumb. Like I said, it's crumbly. It's not like a croissant and it's not like bread dough. It's more like a biscuit. At least that's what we call biscuits here in the U.S. Oh, yeah. It smells amazing. You got nice chunks of cheese. I do recommend an aged cheese or a cheese that has a little more kick to it, because anytime you're eating something with a lot of flour, that flour can dilute some of the flavor. And now I'm going to put, especially the top, with all that butter into my mouth. Mmm. That is perfect. Awesome. And just like that, you have scones. Fancy. Serve them at dinner parties. Bring them wherever. Make them sweet. Make them savory. Put in what you want. As long as you do the flour, butter, cream, salt, and sugar, and baking soda, mix in whatever you want. If the thing you're mixing in is really wet, you're going to maybe want to drop some of the liquid that you're adding. If what you're adding to it is incredibly dry and it absorbs moisture, you may need to add a little bit of more moisture for your dough. Just use your common sense when mixing in ingredients. And that's it. Super easy. Make sure to like, share, tag, subscribe, hit the bell, follow, tell everybody about it. Maybe get print something up in the newspaper or like make a flyer and go door to door and tell everybody to watch Chef Mike Does Stuff. Yeah, because you're not going to want to miss when Chef Mike Does Stuff. Okay, manitas, bye-bye. I think that's how the song goes. I should have tags right about here. And not a lot of miss-ups, so there's not going to be a whole lot of comments I like to add in my videos. So there you go. Metal. Too much metal for one hand. That's what this is. Too much metal for one hand.